Hey, welcome to this podcast where the truth is released to inspire you to find your voice, bring out the gold within you, and help you reach your full potential to roar out loud in the world around you. I'm your host, Mary Shree, and I'm here to take you on a weekly journey of hope, inspiration, and empowerment. This podcast is where we believe in turning up the volume on life's practical tips, impart insightful wisdom, as well as share life stories of triumph, resilience, and passion. In each episode, we'll be diving deep into relevant topics in today's world, as well as into the incredible lives and stories of extraordinary everyday individuals like you and me who have been set free from the fears, lies, and have overcome great adversity and found their voice to release their roar. So whether you're tuning in during your morning drive, working out at the gym, getting ready for school, or cozying up with that good cup of coffee, get ready to amplify your life and ignite your courage. This is Roar Out Loud. Hey everybody, I'm super excited that you are back with us on this podcast, Roar Out Loud. And I have a super special guest with us today, and they're special to me because of something I just walked through, and I'm going to release that in a minute. But before I get started, I just want to thank everybody that's out there listening. You know, we recently got our statistics in for Roar Out Loud, and we have literally been in 18 different countries. We've got 151 people listening in different cities and all of that. There's so many of you guys tuning in, and that's super exciting to me because that means that there are seeds being planted to unlock your voice, unlock your roar. And we have people listening all the way in Cyprus, in Spain, in Australia, in Iraq, in Ecuador, in Norway, of course here in the US, in Canada. We've got in Ireland and more. And you guys around the world, let's go! This is amazing. It's so amazing. Well, I've got a great episode for you today, and it's called Developing the Leader Within and Leading from a Place of Health. Everybody leads something. Today on the podcast, I have a guest speaker, like I said, Krystal Zellmer. Krystal, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here, Mary.
Yeah, I'm super excited that you're here with us. Now, Krystal, you have been in the personal development field since 2012 and a transformational facilitator. You're co-owner of Klemmer Leadership Training, where you serve as vice president and director of marketing and sales. And this is an incredible leadership training. And I can say that for myself because I went through the Klemmer Quickening, yes, right here in my city, and it was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal thing. And I realized things going through that about myself that, you know, I'm just going to say it. I'm more of a powerful leader than what I have been stepping into. And that's one of the things I realized even more so. I mean, it's always been said over me with things like that. Sometimes it takes really, really owning it. Like, not sometimes, it actually takes really owning it. And Krystal, you are that. You are a powerful leader. And you were raised by your father, Brian Klemmer. And he was an international speaker, leader in leadership and character development and all of that. And he shared the stage. I did a little research on him. He shared the stage with people like Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Zig Ziglar, which is one of my favorites, Miles Monroe, Les Brown.
Yes.
I mean, Les is phenomenal. I got to see him in person at a personal development conference a couple years ago. Phenomenal. And that's incredible. Tell me a little bit about you taking on your mantle from your father and how he really began to develop healthy leadership even in you as a child.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I don't think that I knew I was being developed as a leader. And the reality is I was immersed in leadership. Everybody goes, what was it like to be raised by Brian Klemmer? And the reality is he didn't talk about leadership. He lived leadership.
That's so good.
Which is so what my heart is. It's not just about talking the talk. It's about walking the walk.
Yes.
So he didn't preach tools at me. He really actively used leadership tools with me. And I think that that's what I got that was so different. I actually have a book somewhere in the back of my head that I'm going to write someday, about what it was like to grow up that way and different lessons he taught me along that journey.
That's so powerful. Where would you say in your life you actually begin to go, oh no, this is me. Like, I am a leader.
Yeah, I. If you didn't know this about me, I have a little rebellious streak in my youth.
Really? No.
I did, and I think that I was running from the things that were innate. And there's a beautiful quote. I think it's Marianne Williamson around just the light that's in us that scares us.
Right.
And I think that that was really my journey, and I pushed away from it. And when he passed, it felt like one of those crux moments in my life, a watermark moment in my life, where it was like, this is who I was always meant to be. I've been running from it for a long time. I wanted to prove myself in my own way before I accepted what that mission really looked like. And then it was, this can't die. And Kimberly Zink and myself, we just locked arms and we're like, it's not just we want this to live. It's we're 100% committed to whatever it takes. We're going to do this together.
Yeah. And you took on that mantle. You fully embraced that mantle. And in your own right, even if you didn't have that mantle, you are a leader of leaders. That's what I would say about you, Krystal. You're a leader of leaders. And I see your Father's mantle on you, but I also see what the Father, our Heavenly Father, has placed on you. And with that, you've risen up and you've become very powerful in what you carry and what you present to the world, because what you're releasing is raising up people. It's depositing seeds to make people go, oh my goodness, no, this is who I really am. This is who I'm called to be. And you since you took on that mantle, you've facilitated leadership trainings in multiple countries, and you do group coaching, you do individual coaching, and all of that. And I love this. You wrote your book during COVID, and it's become one of the number one bestsellers on Amazon.
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit.
On Amazon.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, and I honor that. Tell us a little bit about your book, just in short, for the people listening.
Yeah, I would love to say I wrote it for some beautiful reason. And the reality is, it was 2020. I do live experiential trainings for a living. That's what our company specializes in. And we weren't doing that in 2020. And I was frustrated. And I thought, I can't do what I meant to do. I'm stuck. My whole victim story.
Right.
And my team challenged me and they said, okay, those are all the things you can't do right now. What can you do? And I was like, well, I've always said I'm going to write a book. I could write a book. And they went, great. By when? By the end of the year. And I had my first draft of that book complete by the end of 2020. It released in April of 2021. And it's all about how to solve a problem when you have no idea what to do. And it's spoken to in a really kind of public format. Anybody could read it. And for you and I, it's a faith formula.
Yes.
On really how to raise your faith for things. And that's what the whole book's about. I thought that was a very relevant message for 2020, how to solve a problem when you don't know what to do.
Come on. And that is something that is in all of our lives, right? Like, how do you solve a problem when you don't know what to do? And that, I feel like, ties in with today's, what we're going after in healthy leadership. Because in leadership, we all lead, right? You and I both, we lead as mothers, we lead people even outside of our families. You lead in your meetings, your trainings, all of that. I lead in different spheres, in ministry and all of the and overseas ministry and different things, and everybody's leading in something. People lead in their jobs. We lead ourselves on a daily basis. My point, we're all leaders in our daily sphere of influence. And truth be told, some of us are healthy leaders and some of us are not so healthy leaders, I would say. And some of us are both healthy and not so healthy in different seasons that we're in and out of our lives. And Krystal, you lead leadership trainings both domestically, you've done some internationally, like we said. You have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of people pass through your trainings. So let me ask you, what are the most blind spots that you've seen, in your opinion, that creates a lack of healthy leadership within people, especially when it comes to leading themselves?
100%, because that's the number one leadership role that we have, is our leading of ourselves. Because if we can't lead us, we can't be expected to lead others from any other position than the way we lead. I actually have a prop with me, which is something that our company has become pretty famous for.
Yes, the sunglasses.
Set of sunglasses. Everybody likes the set of sunglasses, right? So I want you, this is the best way I know to describe some of our deep internal blind spots. So I want you to imagine that I was born wearing this set of sunglasses. I've been wearing them my whole life long, and I don't even know sunglasses exist. These are as much a part of me as my arm. I eat in them, I sleep in them, I work out in them, I go to church in them, I raise kids in them. I've never had them off. If that was true, and I was looking at the wall behind me, I would say that that wall is blue.
Yeah, because your lenses are blue.
Totally. And no matter how much you marry someone I respect and honor tries to tell me different, can I see that wall as anything but blue?
No.
No, you can tell me it's white over and over and over and over. And maybe you guys have had somebody like that. She could be persistent with me. She could go, Krystal, do you remember that wall? It is white, 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 right? And I could not see it as anything but blue. It's hopeless. She could try to motivate me. Krystal, it's white.
Right.
And that, it won't change.
It'll remain blue.
It'll remain blue. The first thing that gets to happen in order for me to see that wall is white. This is the part most people miss, by the way, is I get to discover that there is such a thing called sunglasses, and then go on a discovery to find my own. And the second I bump into these and I take them off, boom, in an instant, I can see white where I could never see white before.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because I believe it's because you start recognizing, oh, this has been my belief systems for so long. Things that are ingrained in me, things that were a part of me as a child, are begin to grow in me as a child, are through circumstances of our life, the trauma, the different things we've walked through.
Yeah. And some of them are big life events that create these sunglasses. And some of them are day-to-day instances that we wouldn't look back and have some big memory on, but they've created belief systems within us. I think the biggest blind spot for leaders is that they stop looking for the belief systems that they don't know are there. Yes. And the second we stop looking, the second I think I've arrived, the second I take that I already know mentality, that's when those blind spots begin to lead first out of automatic. And then I'm operating in automatic systems. 99% of the decisions we think we're not making. Right. Our belief systems are making those decisions. Right. And that to me is when I can get when I'm the most healthy, I am in a self-discovery process, constantly looking for, what's the belief system that ran me in that decision? What's the belief system that ran me in how I treated that person? What's the belief system that ran me when I wasn't willing to forgive myself for a mistake I made? Whatever those things are, that's a powerful discovery process.
So powerful. And, I sometimes call those also like when you discover your trigger points, right? I mean, trigger points, that's like a buzzword in the community I'm in. However, I think of it as it really is your trigger points. You go on this self-discovery. Why did I react that way to this person? Why did I feel this way around that leader? Why do I feel insecure, around this leader, but I don't feel insecure around that leader, or why do I have a hard time bringing my full self to the table? Yeah. Why do I have a hard time engaging in my goals?
Yeah. And that's the whole practice, right? Is going back to In our training, we say how you discover sunglasses. And all of us, every single person has thousands of sets of sunglasses.
Yes.
Some that are working, some that aren't working,
Mm-hmm.
and the ability to shift them, right? So we say, notice your feelings and notice your behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's notice your triggers and your words and work backwards at what would the thinking be that would drive that thinking
Right.
or that feeling or that behavior.
Yeah.
And that's what takes us back into control over leading ourselves.
Yes. So good, Krystal. That's so good. I know for me, some of my sunglasses, I guess you could say, was a belief that I didn't have enough time to get everything done that I need to get done, especially as a mother. I mean, you're a mother, you have children. I've got 4 kids of my own, and spinning plates, I feel like at both ends. And that's always been one of my things is like, and I have to check myself, especially after the Klemmer quickening. Wait a minute. I have enough time to get everything done in the day that I'm supposed to get done.
Totally.
But yet,
what tool do you use to take back control over your time?
well, one of the tools that I use is knowing that God lives outside of time.
Yeah, so powerful.
God lives outside of time, and I can walk in that grace and that peace knowing, hey, I still showed up my full self, even if I didn't get everything done that I wanted. It's like yesterday, I mean, I had a lot of things going on, kid stuff, but then also bank stuff for Tanzania and, mission stuff, ministry stuff, all the things. I had a lot going on, and I was frustrated with myself at the end of the day. And I was going, why am I so frustrated with myself? I don't feel like I got anything done. And it was like, wait a minute, I actually did get stuff done. I just maybe didn't get everything done I wanted to get done, but I still showed up and I still got stuff done. And so for me, realizing, oh, wait a minute, God lives outside of time. I don't have to operate in this, stay in this frustration. I don't have to, walk in this lack of peace. I can be peaceful in knowing that I still showed up.
Yes.
So
and I did the best I could with what I had.
Yeah, exactly. And
if I didn't, I can rate that and go, oh, I didn't do the best I could. I gave it 80% today. And
and how can I do it better?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so for me, that's leading yourself in health.
Yeah.
So many times I know as a leader in past, I have beat myself up, right? For not getting things done or not doing things perfect or, in that type of thing or failing somebody even, I mean, that's real.
It's honest. Yes.
Yeah. And I've beat myself up in those past experiences. And now it's like, wait, no, I can give myself grace because I know I'm doing what I'm called to do. I'm showing up my full self. I was quick to apologize. I was, you know what I mean? Learning tools, powerful tools, healthy tools to grow yourself as a healthy leader and lead other people in health.
It is so beautiful.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the major belief systems that you had to unlock within yourself to grow yourself in healthy leadership? Because I mean, I know we all have blind spots. And we still, like you said, we lead in health sometimes, but sometimes we lead in not so health. And sometimes they're coexisting in the same space because there are parts of you that could be leading in health and there are parts of you that could be leading in not so great healthy areas. But what would you say are blind spots that you discovered about yourself and how you grew into healthy leadership out of that?
One of the deepest sets of sunglasses that has run me for a really long time, as long as I can remember, is I'm not enough.
Me too.
That one, and I find it and it's great now because it's an indicator of whether or not I'm operating in health or not, is how strongly that belief system is running in any given day or any given moment. Mm-hmm. So the set of sunglasses for me is I'm not enough. And that really, we can wind that all the way back to I'm not enough. There's not enough money. There's not enough time. There's not enough grace from God. There's not enough connection. There's not enough love. And that heart space, that belief system will create either me not putting in any effort because I don't feel like I can win anyway, which is where I lived for a lot of my life. And then once I embraced leadership, it created a lot of burnout because no matter how much I gave, it wasn't enough, because it wasn't about what I was giving or not giving. It was about the belief system was going to operate regardless of what was happening around me.
Yes.
And then it created that unhealthy pattern, which is really unhealthy in leadership, because if I'm operating from I'm not enough, everyone following me feels that, and no permission to rest, no permission to make mistakes, no permission, because they're all living within the context I created for our organization, which is I'm not enough, therefore you're not enough. Like that permeates, right? And I might never say it out. I would never say that to another human being.
No, but people can feel it.
They can feel it.
People can pick up on it by what you bring to the table, just in your attitude or the way you carry yourself, even.
Exactly.
The way you present yourself, even, walking into a meeting, a one-on-one meeting with somebody, or the way you're dressed, or the way there's a lot of things that people can pick up on without you having to even open your mouth. That can be an indicator of lack of health within ourselves.
100%. So if you're asking that would be like a dominant belief system that operates for me, that when I'm in a healthy place, then I can go, I showed up and I gave everything I knew to give in that moment, in that space with those people. I showed up in the fullness of who God designed me to be to the best of my current ability, right? When I'm in an unhealthy, I can show up in everything I know to be, and my internal dialogue is there's not going to be enough. I'm not enough. I didn't do enough to change the result. All the things. That's not trusting in God. That's not leaning on the Holy Spirit. That's not walking in faith. That's not leading from a healthy perspective. And then we could lead that back to pride or arrogance, right? Like if I think that it's all within what I do and don't do, then so we could go into that set of sunglasses. I have sets of sunglasses around so many different ones in my life. I mean, we could go way back or current.
I know a lot of times for me, I've found out that my trigger points are set of sunglasses. The lenses through which I see life really began to take shape in my younger years.
Totally.
And I had to fight literally for freedom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Really go after health and healing. And I would say becoming a healthy leader, like you said, is recognizing those things, beginning to see, like, what lens are you looking through? What set of sunglasses are you looking through in different aspects of your life, whether it's with your family, your marriage, because like I said, we all lead something. We're all leaders.
Yeah.
And so we lead. If you're a wife, a stay-at-home mom, you're leading. You're first off leading yourself. So how do you show up in society? Secondly, you're leading, if you're a wife, a mom, whatever, you're leading in your marriage as well. Showing up, you're leading with your children. If you run a ministry or, whatever you do in life, I actually am one of I believe ministry is everything you put your hands to. I'm not like, this is a ministry. Yeah, I used to think that way, but
you're helping me recalibrate for sure.
I really believe ministry is everything you put your hands to, because we're called to do everything, unto the Lord, And so with that, I think we sometimes get our belief systems twisted in how we see things through certain lenses by the way we were brought up. And like, I know for me, being the way I was brought up in church, the different church systems and things that I was brought up to be very, I would say now I would call it legalistic, and performance based.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that whole thing of not enough really, really took root in my heart.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me. It felt hard to show up fully as a leader without a mask on.
Yeah.
Like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm great. But inside, I'm
blessed
dying.
And highly favored.
Yeah. Blessed and highly favored. But inside, I'm dying. right? I mean,
Yeah.
I had told you a
Come
little bit
on.
how I came off the mission field completely burned out, in 2019. And we had led in so much. And if you had asked people, they've been like, you guys are phenomenal and this and that and that. But we were dying. We were dying in our marriage. We were dying. I felt like I was failing even as a mother. I felt like I was failing spiritual children. I felt like I was failing in a lot of areas, but people would have said we were crushing life.
Totally.
But it was the lenses I was looking at, and also there were things that I hadn't dealt with inside, and I began to mask, and I took on lenses in my adult years,
Yeah.
that I actually there were different things I dealt with, in my when I first began my journey of health, but then through life, through ministry, through the grind, I didn't
Totally.
realize I took sunglasses back on,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
I didn't
And I
realize
think
it.
as leaders, that happens a lot more than people care to admit.
Yes. And so that's one of the things that I want to get into in talking about, traits of a healthy leader. And you just said that's one of the things that people don't always care to admit. So one of the traits of a healthy leader, I believe, and what I've grown in is fully bringing yourself in the realm of vulnerability. Let's talk about that.
Being
Like
vulnerable.
showing up, like so many times, like what I learned in leadership is you don't talk about your mistakes. Otherwise, people aren't going to want to follow you, you know?
Gosh, isn't that just such a lie?
Yeah, it's such a lie. And sometimes it wasn't verbally expressed, other times it was, you
Yeah.
know? You just deal with it right here, but you don't let people in on, what's really going on. And I really believe that we're called to show up fully authentic. And if you can't be fully vulnerable with your leadership teams, within your businesses, within your church life, or whatever it is within your family, if you
Yeah.
can't show up completely authentic and vulnerable and be vulnerable, then you're not going to fully step into that place of health.
Yeah. I had a leader once tell me that because I think a lot of people view vulnerability as weakness.
Yes,
And
I
that
did.
definition.
I totally
Yeah.
did.
And that doesn't, and a lot of the times it comes down to what do we believe about a thing, and that'll actually drive our behavior more than the actual thing.
Yeah.
So if we believe that vulnerability is weakness, we're never going to show up as weak because that's not a trait of leadership,
Right.
right?
Right.
Versus I believe vulnerability leads to meekness, which is totally different. And that walking that out, this leader used to tell me that vulnerability is simply being open to surprise. And if you actually
That's good.
walk into situations open to being surprised, it's like, yeah, I don't need to be in control of somebody else's response to what
Yes.
is authentically happening in my heart. And from me and my training, they're not responsible for my feelings. So
Right.
me being vulnerable about anything that's going on doesn't mean that I'm asking you to solve what's going on for me. I'm just letting you in on my process to go, here's vulnerably and authentically what's going on in my heart and my spirit. And I want to walk through this in partnership, which creates humility that I'm not out doing everything alone.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah. I love that. And vulnerability for me also looks like coming before a team. We talked a little bit about this in past conversations, and being able to say, hey, what do you see in me that are weaknesses?
Totally.
Or even
Open to
with not
feedback.
just your teams, but your spouses, your children. When I take my children on a date, that's one of the questions I ask them. What do you see in me where I can grow as a mother?
I love that.
Where do you feel I need to show up more for you?
Yeah.
Just asking those vulnerable questions. Sometimes people will go, I'm your mother, that's just the way it is, and do as I say. But we want our children to grow in health, right? And to be able to lead themselves in health and lead other people. And so I've really come to a place where it's like, no, be vulnerable with them.
Yeah.
Completely open and walk it out in love. And love looks like showing up authentically.
Yes.
It looks like
Absolutely.
showing up authentically and being vulnerable within the other person, even in marriage too. Asking those same questions. Where do you feel like I'm not showing up for you? you
Totally.
know how can I serve you better? Because I mean, Jesus was the greatest servant of all, and we're called to serve people. You can't serve people well if you don't know how to lead yourself and you don't know how to lead others.
So real. One of my favorite questions that a dear friend of mine, great coach, asks is, what was it like being married to me this week?
I love that question. Wow.
A great question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like having me as your mom this week? You know, getting, and then creating enough. And this is why leading out of health to me is so important, because it's one thing to come to somebody with an open heart vulnerability and go, where do you see a need for me to grow? And if I have been leading from an unhealthy place, they won't tell me the truth.
Yeah.
Most of the time, right?
Yeah,
if I've been leading from a place on either side, right? Arrogance or false humility of like, if I'm beating myself up all the time and shame, guilt, whatever, if I'm leading from that place, they're not going to tell me the truth because they don't think I can handle it. And if I'm leading from this place of arrogance, they're not going to tell me the truth because they're afraid of me. Right. So how do I actually reposture my heart and my behavior and my actions in such a way that the context is there, that not only am I coming with the question, I'm coming with the heart posture that I actually want to hear the answer. And that creates an entirely different feedback loop.
So good. So good. So Krystal, you talked about, in a sense, it was like setting that heart context, right? Like creating that loop of receiving when you sit with that other person, your spouse, your children, whoever it is, your team. Hey, where do you see blind spots in me? How can I improve? And creating that space to be vulnerable and for it to go both ways. You set a heart context. Talk to me more about that place, setting that heart context, because to me that's showing up in love, that's serving them, but it's opening up yourself to receive, honestly, sometimes it's the criticism as well as the praise. And sometimes you can see blind spots within yourself when you go, ooh, that hurt, and now I'm mad at them
Totally.
for being critical, or when they're praising you and they're like, man, that was incredible, and you just want to go hide because you're like, oh, I don't like the praise. And that was me both ways. That was me both ways. Like criticism used to be so hard for me. It felt hard and I'd want to go cry sometimes. And then other times, when I would pretty much almost every time I would get off a stage from speaking, because I've been on so many stages and God has always put me in that place and I've always hated it. I hated it. I was like, but I know I'm called to speak. I know I'm called to do this. And then I would be nervous and God, why do I have to do this, and argue with them? And then I would walk off the stage and people would go, that was incredible. Or, whoa, who, people that have known me that actually maybe never heard me speak in that context would go, oh my goodness, where did this come from? Who are you? How do I even really know? And I would want to go hide. I'd want to go hide. And in my head would be a battle of criticism. You could have done this better. You should have said this. You shouldn't have done that. You looked like this. You looked too fat. You looked too skinny. You didn't, my nails didn't look good enough. All the stuff, the things that we battle with in our heads. And sometimes that creates that place of hardship within ourselves to show up vulnerable and be able to receive, like you said it, that heart context, going full circle in a sense. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And my hands are sweating, which is a good sign. The whole piece that you just spoke to reminds me of this like powerful place that I've been taught and practicing for so long, which is that feedback is neutral. And to truly be able to receive feedback from a neutral place and to self-evaluate from a neutral place. And most of us are so attached to the feedback because we think that it means something about us. And then we take it personal and out of context and all the things.
Yeah.
And for me, that one practice of feedback is neutral, both giving feedback and receiving feedback is neutral, has been such a game changer in my life, in my heart, in my ability to give and receive feedback. Like, it is neutral. It doesn't mean anything about me. And Kimberly Zink taught me, I'm sure her mentor taught her, that we are not our results. We're responsible for our results, but we are not our results.
That's good. Break that down for me.
So many people think that they're their behaviors. And I'm going to suggest you're not your behaviors. This is something that we teach. I'm not my behavior. And then they think the next level that drives your behaviors is your feelings. And people think that they're their feelings. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. You are not.
No, because that's not how God created us.
Exactly.
I was just having this conversation the other day with somebody. God did not create us to walk in anxiety. God did not create us to walk in depression and oppression. That's not how he created us or wired us. And I know so many people are, but sometimes I really believe this society or culture we're in especially the Western world. I mean, I don't see it like in Tanzania or places where I was, in other parts of the world, different countries I've been to. I don't see it as prevalent as here. We use crutches with our blind spots, right? And so we use these crutches, and when the reality is God did not create us to be like this. And so that's not who we are. You're not a depressed person. You're not a suicidal person. You're not a person that walks in anxiety and fear. Those are things that have come at you, but they're not yours. So speak to that. How do you rise up? How do you begin to walk into health in that place, or get into health to overcome those things and rise up into who God has called you to be? Because one of the things I know, and I believe 100%, we are called to be a victorious bride.
Amen.
Right? We're called to be a victorious bride, not a church that puts their tails between their head between their legs, or buries their head in the sand and tail between their legs. We're not called to be that until something changes in the world and and no. We're called to rise up, and when you choose to hold on to those belief systems within you, you're not going to fully rise.
100%.
But speak to all of that. Speak to what you just said.
I'm not a medical model in any way, shape, or
No,
form.
like I'm not. Yes, there are people on antidepressants and things like that. They've gone through things and they do help. They do.
And there's a difference between chemical imbalance.
Yes.
Right. And there is, and we could go all the way.
But even in that, I believe God can heal. But speak to
100%.
speak to what we were just talking about.
But whoever hears me go, separate your identity from your depression or your anxiety or whatever, like I have experienced anxiety, depression, all of those things. When you're in it, it feels so real.
So real.
And I have so much compassion and grace and love for people that are
yes.
But even if you can make one simple shift in your languaging, instead of saying I'm anxious to saying I'm experiencing anxiety in this moment.
Yes.
That takes it outside of identity. And
that's so good, Krystal. Yes.
Just a small shift, languaging shift. And so, because I don't think your feelings, I don't think your behaviors, this is all taught to me, right? I don't claim to have come up with any of this. I've just gotten gifted a lot of learning. I also don't think that you're your thinking. You're not your belief systems.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that, because that's what drives our feelings and our behaviors, people get also attached to that. Those belief systems are who I am. But I believe that you're you. You're a child of God. You were talking about daughtership and sonship.
Yes.
You were made in him. You have this uniqueness and this beauty, fearfully and wonderfully made. That's you. Everything else can come and go. That is the reality, is that we are physical. We aren't physical beings. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience.
Absolutely. I often say, and I got this from my mentor's wife, we're more spiritual than we are human.
Yes, 100%.
We're more spirit.
And the more we own that, and the more that we come back to that and we release some of the other stuff, like that's where my healthiest version of my operating exists, is when I'm able to stay neutral to my thinking, feelings, and behaviors. And I can come back to this place, because that's how I separate myself. This is my mentors taught me. I'm responsible to my results. I am not my results. And when I can begin to pull those two things apart, now when I make a mistake, it has nothing to do with my value or my worth as a human.
Yeah.
When I'm not the most effective, healthy leader, it has nothing to do with my value or my worth as a human. Then I don't need to hide it. I don't need to have shame about it. I don't need to, because it's not who I am.
So
I
good.
can own it quickly and go, hey, I made a mistake.
Yes.
I reacted instead of responding. And I apologize. I take ownership. I recommit to be better for you as a person. Please forgive me. That's a different come from. But if I believe I am my thinking, feeling, and behavior, then I get defensive about how I show up.
Yeah.
Because it has to do with my worth and my value. And so it's that totally pulls it apart for me in the best possible.
Yeah. You get, and you get defensive. You sometimes put up boundaries, which are actually walls.
Don't get me started, Mary.
I mean, I've seen
it is our newest term. And I'm not saying that there's no place for healthy boundaries. So
right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it is our new socially acceptable way to say, I don't want to reconcile with you.
Yes. Thank you, Krystal.
I don't want to forgive you.
You just put words to what I have felt for so long. It is so true because I've seen it so much, especially in the church and different areas that I run in. I've seen it so much. Boundaries, 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 boundaries. But when the boundary looks like a wall and you can't operate in love,
come on, preach.
When you can't operate in love, friend, that is a wall. Yes. And you need to go on it. I mean, I've been there. I've been there.
I have too. And I've presented it real pretty for other people.
Yes.
And the reality is my boundary was in place because I wasn't healed enough.
Yes.
To be in community with the other person. It actually had, not that they did right, kind. I'm not saying that they were in the right. I'm saying my boundary existed because I wasn't healed enough to be in their space and be kind and loving.
Yep, that's right.
That's a wall.
That's right. And I wrote a list of, traits of a healthy leader, and some of the things that my top one is operating in love. And when you have that wall, I really, like for myself, when I had that wall, I know I wasn't operating in love. My heart was not to serve the other person, which, I mean, Jesus, if you think about it, when he washed the disciples' feet, he was washing Judas's feet.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, fully knowing that he was going to be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver and, given away.
But we think if it's us that was willing to do that, we'd be taken advantage of, doormat, all the things. But if it's Jesus that does it, it's admirable.
Right. But we're called to be Christ-like.
Yes.
And Christ-like means to love as Jesus loved him. We're never going to be Jesus, because we do operate in the natural realm. However, when you begin to live from that, I call it third heaven realm. Yeah. We live from the third heaven realm where we're seated with Christ in heavenly places. We see him, we see his heart, we're seated next to him, we feel him. We operate from that space. We begin to love, we begin to serve. We begin to walk in that place of true wisdom because it's from his heart, right? His realm. We think like him, we begin to pursue people like him, even our enemies.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yes. And that's being fully vulnerable, integrity. That's one of the things I put on my list, integrity, and showing up also to other people where you keep that accountability. Hey, did I serve well? Did I show up well? Did I operate in the way that I should? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I guess I come back to, I have, there are some, and these actually came from somebody else in leadership that I respect what he's doing on mission, and some things that we say to our kids, and they're all things that are, to me, things that happen when you're living in a healthy leadership style, which like we start with, you're a man of God, right? You're the head and not the tail. You're above and not beneath.
Yes.
God has mighty, mighty plans for your life.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders are learners. Generosity is a lifestyle. Honor is for everyone. Because we love Jesus, we love people.
Come on. Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so good. That's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so important to really speak that over. I love that you do that with your children. You said you do that with your children?
Every night. Yep.
That's phenomenal.
I am kind. I am brave. I am loving. I am tenacious. And then we go through all the different stuff.
Come on. I love, Krystal, what you're saying about your children. I love how you do that with your kids and you really speak, it's speaking truth over them, isn't it? It's speaking the truth of God. I mean, I always go back to that whole thing of the power of life and death is in the tongue, right? The power of life and death is in the tongue. And Jesus created life. When he created the world, when he created man, he first spoke it. And everything that he released, he spoke. And it was created through the power of his words, the frequency that his words carried. And I know sometimes that word frequency can freak people out. Man goes, oh, that's a little new age. No, it's the reality. Because when we speak, our words have sound waves.
Totally.
Whether we realize it or not, there's a frequency to it. And I just also saw today, I was looking at something and I saw this post on our DNA and how our DNA actually, when it's completely put out in the computer, like you can take your DNA, someone has done it, it can play a music. Like we each carry a sound. We carry a sound. And so what we show up with to the table with other people, with people we're leading ourselves, leading our children, in our marriages, what we show up with to the table carries a sound. And that sound has the power to create life or death. And we set the foundation. We build through that. It begins to change the atmosphere around us. It creates things into our destiny, fulfills our destiny. What would you say to that?
I love it. I'm like, preach. This is totally, this is very much my lane, right? Because everything that comes, the life and death is in the power of the tongue, right?
Right.
And everything that comes out of our mouth, we thought first.
Yes.
And so many of us are releasing the control we have over our tongue because of our thoughts. And it's time for us to take that back. And that's where healthy leadership begins. And that's taking back the power that you have over what you speak and what you allow to come out of your mouth. And the more we shift that frequency, the more we're going to begin to catch ourselves and shift it internally. And it's, to me, it's all about taking back the power of choice.
Yeah. It's changing, taking those sunglasses off. It's renewing the mind, creating new belief systems. When you've been, I say stuck, because you're not fully stuck, because you can always get out of that place if you choose to lean in, right?
Yeah.
But when you feel stuck, there's this thing going on in your belief system. And it's leaning in and creating new, as you begin to declare truth. And I say truth because the truth is in the power of the word, right? And we are created in God's image, right? And his kingdom lives within us. And we're called to bring his kingdom upon the earth and release it. We're kingdom builders.
We are totally kingdom builders.
We're kingdom builders, and kingdom builders are powerful leaders. And you can't fully lead in that if you're not in health. And so when you begin to change the way you think, take those sunglasses off and change the way you think and create those new, scientifically, new neural pathways in your mind and renew your mind with the power of truth, the power of his word. He's truth. He is truth. And the power of love. He is love. He's wisdom. He's knowledge. It begins to change something and it grows. It changes you. It changes something within you and it grows you into a more healthier, powerful version of who you are actually called to be, because that's who you were created to be before you even existed on this earth. Because you were there first before you came here.
Totally.
And when you
Yep.
can step into that place, and I say this just even from my own experience, I've grown in confidence.
Yeah.
I've grown in owning who I am. Does it mean that I don't get scared sometimes or feel that ooh when I step onto a stage or when I jump on different podcasts and lead in
Mm.
that way or when I'm writing my book? No, it doesn't mean that, but I still step into the place and say, "Okay, I choose to show up today because I am a powerful person to show
Yeah.
up. God's created me to be an author." I'll never forget my mentor, and I've said this many times on other podcasts, but I love this story. One
Yeah.
of my mentors, Steve Backlund, his wife, she kept getting these words from people. I just see you writing books. I see these books in you, and they kept saying that. And she finally went to the Lord, frustrated, and she's like, "God, why do people keep saying I'm writing books? I'm this, I'm that. I am not an author." Steve is the one that writes all the books. Her husband, he
Mm.
writes the books, and the Lord stopped her and he said, "Wendy, even if you never write the book, you will always be known as an author in heaven."
Wow.
Because that is what you carry. Your God knows the days, your days, right? You were
Totally.
there first before you were here. And he has put everything inside of you that you will ever need on this earth to rise up and be the powerful version that he's called you to be, to walk in the confidence, to own who you are, and to step up and begin to step out. And so I know for you, I know for me, we're called to raise up healthy leaders.
Yeah.
And that's why you stepped in and chose, because it was a
Yeah.
choice,
Good
to
choice.
you chose to carry your father's mantle. That's why, you're also, yes, you have that mantle, but also God's raising you up. And I believe this, Krystal, 100%. God is raising you up to step into the fullness of who you are, what he's placed inside of you, not just all the knowledge of what you were raised in with your father. That is who part of who you are, but there's even more.
Yeah.
And you're stepping out in it. And I
Thank
am
you.
too. And I'm owning. I believe, even though I went through crazy life, and my listeners that have listened to some past podcasts know this, the abuse, all the different things, right? Like, that doesn't define who I am.
Yeah. So good.
None of
As I
that
used to
stuff
always
defines
say,
who I am.
your past has no um ability to predict your future unless you allow it to.
Unless you allow it to. So, Krystal, I know, like I was talking about your father's mantle and all the things that you carry and what God has put inside of you, and you're stepping up. And I believe stepping into a new season, like I said, of owning fully who you are. Because I believe there's content inside of you that hasn't been released yet. That isn't your father's content. It's your content, right? It's heaven's content. It's heaven's DNA within you
Yeah.
that is coming to the surface because there's a rumbling inside, right? It's happening.
The roar is
The
happening, right?
roar is happening. And that's the same with me. Like, I really believe that about myself, stepping into a new season. And I believe for so many people listening right now on becoming the healthy leader within, right? Like, rising up and being healthy leaders. So many people listening right now, there's a wrestling. There's a wrestling going on. Can I really do this? Is this really, me? And I don't care what background you come from. Everybody has the ability to grow
Yeah.
and to rise up in health and lead from a powerful place. I really, really, really believe that about people. And I know you're called to serve in that place and raise up healthy leaders. I'm called to serve in that place and raise up healthy leaders. And sometimes that looks like stepping out and taking risks, like you said, owning your mistakes, and in this place, I mean, you know it, I know it, as leaders, we've been squeezed.
A lot.
We've been so squeezed. We've been so squeezed, but the squeezing has created a better version because I've chosen to lean in. And I would think you would say the same.
I would
And
absolutely say
growth happens in that place when you choose to lean in. And from that, you start to bloom. Many people are like flowers, like you're a seed in this earth and you're called to bloom and to become fully who you are. And I want you to leave our listeners, we're going to land this plane here soon. I want you to leave our listeners with, you've already given so many gold nuggets, Krystal, like incredible gold nuggets right throughout this podcast. Leave them with two powerful tools that you have taken on and that you operate in your life even today to show up and be the fullness of who you know you're called to be as a powerful leader in this earth.
The number one for me, the way to create a large amount of change in a short period of time is to begin to discover those sunglasses and those belief systems, trigger points, whatever you want to call it, that are operating you on automatic. The whole rest of your life can be a training ground to be a better leader when you notice your feelings, you notice your behaviors, and you work backwards at discovering the belief systems that are running you that you don't realize are there. And then take active action to exchange those for something that would work. So avoid will not remain avoid. Change it for something that will. So if you notice that you respond defensively, okay, I'm going to put on humility. And the next time I'm in this practice, I'm going to be humble when I'm given feedback or whatever the thing is that triggered it. That's the first thing that I would do.
Yeah.
Be in an everyday, all the time practice.
Come on. That's powerful.
Yeah. And the next thing is the power of agreements is unmatched.
Yes.
And that's just everywhere.
We could do a whole podcast on that, the power of agreements.
100%. And you come and do a training, you experience that exercise. To me, the more we as leaders can be impeccable with our word, that's what the world's frustrated with in leadership, in my experience, is that people are incongruent between their agreements and what they're actually showing up with.
Right.
And or that we can exist in a place where we're impeccable with our word. That's leadership, and owning it when I don't.
Come on. I love that. Yeah. Really quickly, break down active action. How would you do that?
Yeah, active action to me is being in a place where I'm consistently committed to the next thing and doing it.
Yes.
So if that's around discovering sunglasses, then I might say I'm committed to discovering 3 sets of sunglasses that are running every single day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And then I'm in that practice so that I build the muscle until it's second nature. And then it doesn't have to be it's already part of your habit, right?
Yeah.
So active action to me gets you into a habit.
Yes. And one of the things I like to do is I'll write it down.
Yeah.
If I see something, I'll write it down in my journal and I don't love journaling. It's a muscle that I have to grow even more so, but I will write it down if I see something. And I notice that when I write it down, it makes me actually step into it. I own it going, okay, this is what was. And then I write down, this is, I listen. Okay, God, how can I change this? Holy Spirit, what are you on? What is the opposite of this belief system that's inside of me? And then I write a truth, a declaration. Yeah. And I've done it. I mean, I've written them on my mirrors in the bathroom where I'm saying it every single morning and,
wallpaper of your phone.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel like we live in this Instagram worthy, YouTube presentable place.
Yes. All the social media.
Totally. And I have an appreciation for that.
Me too.
And be willing to be messy too. If you don't have your phone and you don't have your beautiful notebook and your pen and people get so caught up in that, and it's like, then write it on a napkin.
Write it on a napkin.
Or put it in your note. Like do something.
I literally scribble things down on like sticky notes and back of envelopes, and you'll find little things all over the place stuck in books. And because I have a lot of books, I love to read, and just all this stuff, things that'll come to my mind right away. I don't always just carry a journal around, but I know for me, I've got to write it. I got to get it out. I got to see it in front of me and really begin to hone in on it and see it daily, and get it out. And that sets our foundation. I believe when you really begin to take ownership in that way, it sets a foundation. Okay, this is how I'm choosing to show up and choosing to really begin to go after growth.
Yes. And then top it off with accountability, right?
Yes.
Mary, I'm committed to leading from this place. Will you hold me accountable and tell me when I hit and tell me when I miss?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so good. That's so good. I love it. And the foundation that you're building, Krystal, or it's going to be, it already is the floor of so many people that are rising up. And God is calling healthy leaders to really begin to rise up. And I believe we talked about this and we won't go into it. That's for another podcast, but there's a shaking going on in the world.
Yeah.
There's a shaking going on, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It can feel messy, but it's beautiful, because out of the shaking can come incredible growth and powerful leaders to rise up, because we want truth.
Totally.
We want truth, and to walk in truth, and to understand truth, and to lead in truth, and to lead in that space of fully showing up, loving God, and releasing Him, who He is truth, He's love, He's a servant, leading from that place. And that's what you do so well. Krystal, thank you so much for showing up today and doing this podcast with me. Like, I absolutely loved it. And it's so fun. I feel like we could just talk a lot on so many topics. I love it, but I don't want to just keep on. I keep on pushing on this vein, in the sense of no, we need to land the plane. We need to land the plane. We need to land the plane. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for showing up with your full self, your authentic self, and being the powerful leader that you are. And I just bless what you are doing and what you're getting ready to lead in a greater, more powerful way. Mm-hmm. And everybody out there that's been listening, I just want to thank you guys. I want to thank you for tuning in. And I just really pray that the seeds that were released in this podcast today, because there were so many gold nuggets, there's so much stuff that we packed into this podcast. And I just really want to pray over you that the seeds that were released today will really begin to grow just a beautiful garden of truth and honor, vulnerability, and risk, and all the things that a healthy leader rises into. And I bless the leader that you are. Hey everyone, I hope you loved today's podcast and that it challenged you, it grew you, and impacted you in some way. If so, I'd love for you to stop right now, share this episode with someone who you think needs to hear it. I'm praying for breakthrough for each and every one of you listening today. I'd also love it if you take 30 seconds for me and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you're listening from. Your review helps this podcast to grow, and it makes us so happy to hear the testimonies. If you're interested also in further leadership training, I would highly recommend Klemmer, which specializes in creating a large amount of change in your personal life in a short amount of time. Check them out at www.klemmer.com. That's KLEMMER. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends and family. Always remember, your voice matters. Your dreams are worth pursuing. And you, my friend, have the power to roar out loud.